Buongiorno, my name is Helena from Yummy Italy. Today I want to do a video about pasta tools. So now I'm going to concentrate on egg pasta that's rolled out, that's thin, with which you make sort of the various filled pastas like ravioli, tortelloni, tortellini, lasagne, tagliatelle, all those kind of flat pasta base doughs. Now, one thing that's really important, especially here in Emilia-Romagna and in northern Italy in general, is a wooden board and a rolling pin. Why? Because it gives it texture on a wooden board. Whenever you use a machine, that takes away all the texture you have, and so it gives it this kind of plastic-like surface which doesn't pick up the sauce. So in the old days, the grandmas, what did they have? They had a rolling pin. They had a wooden board. They had a big knife for tagliatelle, to cut tagliatelle, ribbon pastas like pappardelle as well, or taglioline, all the ribbon pastas. A small knife to cut all the little tiny pastas. They couldn't cut a perfect square to save their lives. In fact, still today, I see these kind of old nonnas sitting there cutting these sort of big sheets of dough with a knife like this. You know, they kind of go this. And it's all wonky, but it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, they're making their little tortellini and they're all going in a bowl with broth and nobody's sitting there making sure that they're all a perfect size. Nowadays, it gets a little bit more exciting because we have a lot of pasta tools that come in very useful. One of the old ones, I'm sorry, actually was this, which is called the Pettine. With which to make garganelli. So it's kind of like a tube pasta, like sort of, it starts off as a rhombus shape and it's a tube pasta. And it's rolled over this pettine or comb. Okay, so you have these kind of ridges, these little lines along it. So now for the purposes of this video, I'm going to show you a little bit the tools that I have. First things first, if we imagine that we've got our sort of big dough and we want to make something like ravioli, for example, what do? We make our big sheet of dough, we fold it in half, we make our fillings, and I have a video on this too. And then in order to press out the air, we use this pasta brush. Now you can use your fingers. The only problem when you use your fingers is that you kind of press down sometimes too much or not enough and you get air pockets in. So while kind of fingers are great for those people who've had years and years, tens of years of practice like the nonne and they know how to do it, when you're a sort of amateur pasta student, you need a little bit of help. And so this is a ravioli brush. This helps to brush out the air from your dough, okay? That's one thing. Then we have our bench scraper, very important while we're working especially. So when we're making our dough, we're bringing our dough together. You can check my video on how to make a perfect dough. This is used to scrape the board, clean the board. It's also used to kind of lift the egg mixture and the flour together for it to absorb. So this is really useful also to kind of collect sort of bits of stray dough or flour that you've got floating around your board. Then we have what I consider sort of to be one of my primary tools, and this is a pastry cutter. Okay, this is made with wood and bronze, and so it's nice and heavy in your hands, so you're not kind of having to press really hard. It does a great job by itself. One has a smooth side and the other one is with ridges. Okay, so you can make your sort of ridged edged shapes or your straight edged shapes. I also have two separate ones of these. So I have all these because obviously if I'm teaching, then people kind of need various tools. So they come singular as well as sort of single items, but this is actually excellent because it has both. Then we have this. Now this is interesting. I don't know whether you can see. So this is called taglia e chiudi, which literally means cut and close. So to give you a better idea of what it is, here's a sort of wider one. So the middle bit, which is slightly elevated, is the metal bit that cuts the dough. Probably. But in the middle, you've got this smooth blade, which is the bit that cuts the dough. And then on the sides, on both sides, on either side, we've got these kind of ridged edges, which are the ones, if you're going to make something like ravioli, you can cut, but it also seals the dough as well. So this is actually pretty genius. There's also a much narrower version. So that's the wide version and that's the narrower version. And this is the one that I use for things like sfoglia lorda, which is what I call cheats ravioli. And there's a video on that too. Okay. So then we have a cutter. So this is a cutter which will cut a large sheet of dough. Okay. This actually comes with 4 bits. So you can add bits and you can just sort of decide how wide you want them. So sometimes for the purposes of videos, I will do very, very wide squares so as to be able to show better the types of pastas that I'm making. Because if they're too tiny, obviously the camera can't pick them up. But this is really, really useful. And like I said, you can just, you know, these bits just kind of come undone and you can just add the amount that you want and need. Then I have what's also a gnocchi board. So before I was talking about the pettine, so we've got the pettine, which is, there's one like this as well, which is larger or wider, and there's one smaller one. Now these ridges are very, very thin together, and so when you have the garganelli that are made on these, they're actually very pretty. So you've got these very, very sort of close, thin lines. You can also use this. So what you fundamentally need, you need your stick, a dowel, just a plain wooden dowel, which has different thicknesses. So this is a little bit thinner, this one. This is a little bit thicker. And the thickness will pretty much depend on the size of your square to start with. So the smaller your square, the smaller your wooden dowel. This is also a gnocchi board. So you can make garganelli with this as well. And this is probably the tool that's the most widely available. And so what you do, you just wrap, I've got a video on this as well. So you have your little rhombus of pasta and then you sort of wrap it over and you fold it along. So I also have a child's rolling pin, which takes the place of a wooden dowel like this. And with this I make a pacchero. A pacchero is a big sort of fat tube. And so again, I make a rectangle of dough, and then I roll it over and I close it as I press it down. I found this at an old antiques market, and you can actually use anything really. This is just a kind of cardboard tube. I think my beeswax wraps came in this. You can use sort of various things. Kids' toy boxes are usually very good for that, especially, you know, things like Play-Doh. You know, if you kind of dig through there, you can find quite a lot of interesting tools to make pasta with. Then we have, this is an interesting one. So farfalle, for example, usually, not always, it depends on the person, but mostly are made with a rectangle. And so this is actually a sort of wheel, which I don't know if you can see, is measured out. So when you roll it along the dough, it will actually roll perfect rectangles. Then I also have one which is very similar, but rather than sort of 1, 2, 3, 4 bits, I have just 2, and that will roll into a perfect square. Okay, and that is about sort of 3 or 4, 3.5 fingers wide. Then we have one of these beautiful bronze tools. This is made for not Anoloni, but Anoloni. So what you do, you have your dough, you put your filling, cover it with more dough, And then where you want your little round anolone to be, you just press it down. And because it springs back, your filling kind of stays sitting upright. This is a really, really nice one as well. Then we've got kind of various other ravioli. I've got a whole load, honestly. I've got heart shapes and sunflower shapes and all sorts. This is a triangle raviolo shape. And I've got a kind of sunflower shape as well. Now, this is my lovely, very expensive wooden board. I'm going to be honest, I prefer not to use these on here for the simple reason that when you're kind of cutting, they tend to dig in the board and chip away at it. And so if I do use these at all, I will tend to use them on an older board. The only other problem with any shape that doesn't start as a square shape is waste. So if you have leftover dough, then you obviously need to rework it and re-knead it. And then obviously roll it out again. And then we have this, which is literally made of straw. And it's handmade. It's handmade by a sort of pasta tool artisan. And this is just to literally get any sort of ingrained bits of dough out of your board. Okay. Apparently he was telling me that when he was a kid, he used to get beaten by his grandma with this. Well, not beaten, but hit on his bottom by his grandma with this. So he doesn't look upon this with much joy or fond memories. Then we have this, which is another way of making squares or rectangles or whatever you want. This comes with various discs. It comes with, I think, 5 or 6 discs total. And so you can make anything from tiny tortellini to big kind of balanzoni tortellacci. So really kind of wide ones. All you have to do is just kind of assemble it. The only problem is that it takes quite a long time to find all the bits that go, perfectly and make sure you've got all the, the perfect shape. Because you also want it to be balanced when you hold it. So you don't want to have one disc that's on the end and the other disc that isn't on the end. So balance is really important with this. Then we've got this one, which is probably my favorite, medieval torture device, I call it. Also used by pastry chefs. So literally what you do, it's like a concertina or accordion. So this just locks the thing into place. And then what you do, if you've got sort of a big sheet of dough, you just hold it and then just push, and it will cut all your squares or rectangles or whatever you happen to have. And what's great about this is that you can cut quickly, so you can cut evenly and quickly. And it just makes it a lot easier, especially if you've got large sheets of dough, to make your sort of space square or rectangle shapes. And so I would say that's pretty much it. Like I said, probably the most important pasta tools, at least from my perspective, because I make my pasta by hand and roll by hand, is the mattarello, so the rolling pin, which come in various sizes. The wooden board, obviously, which come in various sizes as well. And then if I had to choose anything out of all of these, I would probably say this one, because you can do a lot with that. And then obviously for garganelli, you can't really do without these. I mean, you can, if you don't have anything rigid at home, you can use kind of various other things like sort of a set of toothpicks taped together, or you can use a sushi mat. So, you can be quite inventive. But, these are kind of all things that, we play with. We call them pasta makers' toys. And like I said, all available on my website.